So the first one comes from Savannah High School from Mrs. Tanya Smith Visual Arts. Go Blue Jack. And they're asking specifically, did any of your designs fail? And what did you learn most out of that to go on to the next project to help you from a good design?
Um, yeah, no, there were a lot of failures, especially to this day, insofar as getting things rejected. I mean, just the past 3 weeks, I've been working on this book cover and thought I completely nailed it. And and then the editorial agreed, and then it went to sales and marketing, who said, no. I mean, they don't literally say start over, but they're saying start over. And that happens to me to this day. And it's happened all along the 40 years I've been doing this. Now, not all the time, or I would have probably chosen something else. But but it happens. And you have to look at that as an opportunity to do something better, even as painful as that sounds. And it can be very painful. But if you know, just okay, let's go back. Let's redefine the problem. Let's redefine what this book is about and how we want to visually represent that. Um, and yeah, you definitely learn from that. But I think it's not like, I mean, I'm very fortunate in that. So most of my day job, as it were, is to design book jackets for first edition hardcover books. Could be poetry, novels, biography, etc. And then so the book comes out, and all books are different. Some do very well, and we knew they were going to. Thank you, Jurassic Park. But sometimes they come out and it's a big surprise. Uh, like um, like The Secret History by Donna Tartt. I'm really reaching back there, but or like David Sedaris. Um, but where I was going with this is, okay, then the book gets its second life, usually about a year or year and a half later, as a paperback, and that at that point it's literally out of my hands. Like we have a whole other paperback imprints called Vintage Books. It's been around since the 1940s, and they they are how we survive because they Jane Austen and Nabokov and Langston Hughes and these writers that transcend generations, and so they want to buy books. But where am I going with this? Sometimes they pick up the hardcover design, but a lot of times they don't. And if they don't, it might have been because what the book didn't perform the way they were hoping. And so now we're going to give it a second chance with a different cover. Now, is that a failure? I don't I don't look at it that way. And the people I work for don't look at it that way either. Like it's not like, I don't know. It's not like in advertising where you come up with this campaign and it totally bombs and you get fired. Like, which happens all the time. This My job is not like that. So if that's what she's asking, it's not really that quantifiable whether one of my designs succeeded or failed. In my mind, I've done, I think, some really interesting designs for books that just tanked. Um, and I've also uh, said throughout the years, the cover really can only do so much. Um, you know, Book jackets, like maybe help to sell books a bit, but there's so many other factors um, that are involved with that. Um, and that, you know, I will believe that going to the grave.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't feel like I'm answering your question.
No, no, like, I think you have, I just think, like, the kids are curious at that age, and, they're just afraid if can their product live up to their expectations, and, they just wanna go. I thought you answered that question great, but I do have a couple more.
Yeah, yeah,
Now
yeah.
yeah, we have from Haddonfield Memorial in New Jersey, Miss Burnett and Mr. Fox. They have a small class, and they were actually showing your interview with shape and form, and like had, they loved this question. And you once said in the interview that you'll probably be the last print guy, and so this may be a four-letter word in the industry. But one of the kids wanted to know how is AI affecting your job description and the world of book covers, or again, like, or computer work in general? Since
Well, I feel very fortunate, and I can honestly say it doesn't affect me at all. And part of that is, again, I work for Knopf Doubleday Pantheon, which is part of Penguin Random House, as in, you know, this is a big, where I'm going with this is we're actually not really visually, we can use it to develop ideas, but then you have to like really hire an illustrator or a photographer or what have you. I believe it or not, here we are on February 12th of 2026. Uh, I have never used AI for anything, not even to just check it out. Um, Now I've seen a lot of the results, on YouTube and hither and yon and all of that. Uh, but I'm purposefully just staying away from it for as long as I can. And I'm allowed to. And not only am I allowed to, uh, going back to we can't use it, all the copyright issues. So, what if we use some kind of image that somebody could prove they have the copyright to, you know, they can sue us.
yeah, you're in trouble.
And we have really really deep pockets. That's why I was emphasizing the um uh you know the strength and size of Penguin Random House. And we want to avoid that. But what I have been using for over 20 years now um is a really good stock photo agency, which is called Alamy, Alamy. Um, and that's it's a similar concept, but everything is officially licensed, and everybody gets credit and everybody gets paid. And at this point, like Alamy, I mean, it's kind of like AI, but it's not. Like if you say, I need, um, you know, ocean swirl boy in, search, and they've got so many images that it will start to you can see what your options are and see if any of it applies to what you want to do. And but it you know but it you click on that and you get all the information about who made it, and it could be historical stuff or what have you, but also, like, is this licensable? Is there if it's a person and we can tell what they look like, is there a model release? Um, all of this stuff that is covered. Like if I want to use that image now, I can use that image and say blend it with something else. Like that's allowable. Or it'll tell you, there'll be a list of like do's and don'ts, basically. Like or is this in the public domain, or is it, but the 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 assumption is that, because if I want to use a Jasper Johns painting on the cover of a book, I might as well just try to make it, forget it, because the estate won't allow it unless it's a book about Jasper Johns. You see where I'm going with this?
Mhm.
So if you were a photographer that didn't want your work to be used in a commercial fashion, then you wouldn't even bother signing up with Alamy or any other. There's a lot of agencies like this. I just like them because they're not the one that everybody else. Well, you don't hear as much about that them as you do about, say, Getty.
Right.
Um, and there's nothing wrong with Getty. And I've used Getty images, but in other words, but it's not AI. It's quote legit. And so for me, I've managed to still exceed the grasp of AI. There over the last 2 or 3 years, um, like a teacher at a design school or what have you, just sort of for fun, will say, okay, we'll go into whatever AI program or what have you, and like, here's the book, blah, 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 and design it in the style of Chip Kid. And inevitably, it's just a mess. And I think part of that is that I don't really have a particular style. It's more of like a sensibility. And some of these ideas or things I come up with are like really out of left field. And it, quote, can't think that way, at least not yet. But I hold out hope. I think my message to students for a long time has been, if you can find a job, freelance job, or salary job or what have you, in which basically they are paying you for your ideas, that's job security. AI can't come up with an idea. You have to tell it what to do. So, I think that's the hope, for design students.
Well, one last question with the students, also from Haddonfield. Um, of course, this is important because no one wants to be the struggling artist. Do you have any other advice for any student that wishes or is interested into going into the graphic design career in the current job market today?
Current job market. I think, and I've always said this, like, I freelance on the side, and I have since day one, and they allow that. Like, Random House allows that because our initial salaries were so low that they said, you can do freelance graphic design on your own time. Um, but if I had to survive on that, I would be living a very different lifestyle than the one I'm fortunate enough to be living. And what's key to that is to get a salaried job. Like, and this is not easy. I know that. But if you get a salaried job doing something that's creative or that requires you to be creative, but that will give you a paycheck every 2 weeks and medical expenses, and that's the goal. Like, and I think it's possible. We hire people to be on staff. Um,
Yeah,
so
I think, to any student, you have to love what you're doing if you get
yes,
into this. Like,
absolutely.
don't think
A-
you're going to be
I-
rich,
and I
like off
still,
the bat. Like,
yeah,
you have to love in anything in comic media and or like graphic design. You're going to have to love what you're doing, and if something hits, something hits, and best wishes.
yeah. No, I heartily agree with that. I still love it after all this time. Sometimes it drives me a little crazy, but how could it not? Like, but if it's what you really want to do, go for it. Like, don't give up. Like, you don't want to be in your 40s wishing that you had tried to pursue some kind of creative career, uh, but you didn't because you wanted to like play it safe. And I understand that too. Um, you know, I don't have a family, I don't have kids, I don't, and I made that decision very early on in my life. Uh, and for a lot of people, they've they've got they've got to support people. They've got to support their family. And so I'm really going off on a tangent with this, but I think if you want to do something creative and you want to try doing it for a living, you know, pursue it. Pursue it. At least in your 20s when you know, don't have so many